Every Thanksgiving, there's a story we don't talk about. A story that sits at the end of the table, silent, polished, waiting. And if you've ever had someone missing at your family table, you'll know what I mean. For 15 years, in my family, there was always an empty chair. It stood at the end of our oak table, pulled out just enough to look ready, but never touched. My mother used to set it anyway, plate, fork, knife, like she was expecting a guest the rest of us knew would never come. Even after she passed, we kept the ritual. My wife would lay out the plate almost reluctantly, and the kids would glance at it, whispering to each other. That chair became a monument, not to who was there, but to who wasn't. And the silence around it grew heavier every year, like dust we couldn't sweep away. That chair belonged to my sister Claire. The last time she sat there was the Thanksgiving after our mother's funeral. Grief had made us raw, sharp, brittle. One word led to another in the kitchen, and suddenly we weren't two siblings mourning the same woman. We were two combatants trying to prove who had loved her more. The words we threw that day, selfish, coward, ungrateful, they clung to the walls long after she walked out the door. She slammed it behind her. I thought she'd cool off and return, but days passed, then weeks, then years. The chair stayed empty. At first, I convinced myself time would fix it. Doesn't time heal everything? I thought anger would dissolve like sugar in coffee. I told myself she'd call, or maybe I would. But 1 week became 1 month, and 1 month became 1 year. Then 10, then 15. The truth is, time doesn't heal anything you refuse to face. Pride is a prison you build yourself, brick by brick. And I had been serving a life sentence without parole. My children grew up with that chair at the table. They didn't remember a Thanksgiving without it. "Who's it for?" they'd ask. Voices innocent but piercing. I would dodge the question, ask them to pass the cranberry sauce, force a smile. My wife's eyes would soften across the table, patient but pleading. And I would look away. Sometimes silence is louder than shouting. It was easier to let the kids wonder than admit their father was too stubborn to make a simple phone call. 1 year, my daughter leaned in as we passed the sweet potatoes. She whispered, "Dad, why don't you just call her?" I laughed, too loud, too sharp. "It's not that simple," I told her. But later that night, lying awake in the dark, I realized she was right. It was that simple. A number still saved in my phone. A voice waiting on the other side of silence. 15 years of bitterness could dissolve in the time it takes to say one word. Hello. But I didn't dial. My thumb hovered over her name, but my pride weighed it down like stone. Instead, I poured another glass of wine. I stared at my phone like a drowning man staring at a rope, but refusing to grab it. I told myself I didn't need her, that I was fine without her. But the truth pressed down harder with each sip. Forgiveness isn't weakness. Carrying anger is. And I'd carried mine so long it fused into me, like a scar I couldn't remember life without. The following Thanksgiving, something shifted. Before anyone sat down, I cleared my throat and placed a fork and knife deliberately at that empty chair. I said aloud, "This seat is for Claire. I don't know if she'll ever come back, but she'll always be welcome." The table went quiet. My wife's hand found mine. My son gave a small nod. And for the first time in 15 years, that chair didn't feel like a monument to loss. It felt like an invitation. 2 days later, I drove to Claire's house. I hadn't been there since the funeral. The siding was faded, the paint chipped, but the front door was still that same stubborn red. I almost turned back. The years weighed on me like chains. But then I thought of that chair, polished, patient, waiting. I knocked. The door creaked open, and there she was. Her hair was silver at the edges now. Her face carried the lines of years I had missed, birthdays, holidays, milestones unshared. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said softly, "It's been a long time." My throat tightened. "Too long," I managed. "I set your chair this year." She blinked, and then against the weight of all those years, she laughed, a soft, cracked laugh. "Mom would have liked that," she said. In that small laugh, I heard the echo of childhood, of shared secrets, of something unbroken still alive between us. We didn't fix everything that day. You can't sweep away 15 years of silence with one conversation. But we sat on her porch, drank coffee, and talked about small things. The weather, her garden, my grandkids. We avoided the old wounds, but underneath, forgiveness seeped in slowly, like water through dry earth. And sometimes that's enough. Forgiveness doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it tiptoes in, quiet as a chair finally filled. That Christmas, Claire came to dinner. She sat in the chair at the end of the table. My daughter, smiling wide, passed her the cranberry sauce. My wife slid a slice of pie onto her plate. And I watched, my chest tight with something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Gratitude. Love. The chair was no longer empty. The silence was no longer heavy. And in that moment, I understood something I wish I'd known sooner. An empty chair doesn't just hold absence. It holds possibility. The possibility of return, of healing, of a second chance we're too stubborn to believe in until it's too late. So if you have an empty chair at your table this year, don't wait 15 years to set a place. Don't wait until pride turns into regret. Call them. Write them. Leave the chair open. Because forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it changes the future. And sometimes, all it takes is the courage to set the table for one more guest.